triangle at the heart of the show is between Claire, Frank, or Jack and Jamie.
I was just thinking about my husband.
Most people have been at a point in their lives where they've maybe been torn between two people. But what do you do when someone's in a completely different time and they haven't even been born yet? Does that make it easier? Does that make it harder?
Jamie's in the love triangle with Claire and Blackjack, or Frank. He obviously loves Claire, but he's always very aware of Frank.
She's always been in love with Frank, but she had married Jamie, and she'd felt something stirring there, and there was that beat at the end of the wedding episode where she looked at the 2 rings on her hands and realized she was truly caught in a triangle through time.
It is about the 1940s and the 1700s, and it's also the story of a love triangle and 2 marriages.
Frank's relationship with Claire is one of the really I think, really good things in the story, actually.
They've been separated by the war. They've only seen each other for a handful of days during the Second World War, because Claire was a nurse and Frank was in military intelligence. And when we pick up the story, they're trying to reunite, and then suddenly she's pulled away.
She found herself in this time and place, and she was willing to realize that life has to go on, that you can't just sit and pine for another time that you never know if you're going to get back to. When Claire first meets Jamie, the initial bond of patient and nurse is something that she could relate to.
This is the worst part.
Her head is about getting home. She's not here to have any kind of relationship with anybody, much less this young man. But nonetheless, there is a spark between the 2 of them, and during her time at Castle Leac, he becomes a friend, someone that she realizes she can confide in, she can talk to, and provides companionship.
Claire feels somewhat more equality with Jamie. You know, she has always felt, slightly as though she were Frank's wife, so to speak. And so she really has no role in life except as Mrs. Randall. Whereas with Jamie in the 18th century, once they come together, she is Jamie's wife, but she is still very much the healer, the conjure woman. She has her own destiny and she can fulfill it with Jamie, which she could not really do with Frank.
Even though he's a man of that time, there is something timeless about him, and there's something quite modern about his willingness to kind of change his viewpoint or learn or be open to new ideas.
Whatever you tell me, I will believe you.
There was a lot of discussion about each time they have sex, what that meant. And, the first time was very kind of functional and just, we have to do this to consummate the relationship. And the second time, they've sort of allowed themselves to kind of go to that place where it's like a physical meeting. And then the third time is more of a meeting of their souls, or, they really are in love with each other.
He certainly finds his home in her. He finds a purpose.
There's so much I can scarcely breathe.
And the interesting thing about this relationship between her and Jamie is that she doesn't really start to fall in love with him until after they're married. And then once that happens, and once she sees him for who he is and starts to really let herself feel what she actually feels for him, she discovers he's the soulmate, and they have each other. And then she's really in a difficult dilemma, because what is she going to do? She still is married to this other man. She feels like she's an adulterer. She feels like she's a bigamist, that she's married to 2 people at once.
She has made the decision to stay.
Take me home to Lalabrook.
And it's really her coming to terms with what that means for her. It's her trying to find where her place is in this time.
No sooner than they start getting their feet under them and starting to look at life in Lallybrook when story intervenes and everything is blown apart once again.
The problem is Jack Randall. He just constantly gets in their way. You know, if it wasn't for Jack, they would live a happy life.
I felt like it was very black and white. You know, it's quite clear. She meets him the first time and he tries to rape her, and it's like, then that's it. Black Jack is the baddie. But it's not that clear.
Meeting someone who clearly doesn't quite fit into the world. There's something about, he doesn't understand that she's travelled 300 years, but he gets that there's something not safe about her, something unusual.
I shall call it beautiful lies.
Here's this man who keeps reappearing and yet reminds her so much of her husband. She constantly is looking for that part of Frank within him and trying to appeal to this sort of traces of humanity that she believes must be inside him.
I think initially on a kind of intellectual level, I think she is clearly able to handle herself, to think quickly, on her feet. You know, there's a sort of quite a sparring element to their first few encounters.
What do you know of the Duke?
Really, Captain? Must you be so obtuse?
Jack Randall is a sociopath. He is not homosexual, which some people assume. He likes to hurt people. He doesn't really care who it is. But being in his position, he has much better and more private access to male prisoners under his sway. There's nobody who's going to find out what he's doing to them, no one who would help them.
His darkest secret is that the act of inflicting pain is something that is curious and interesting to him.
Jamie first met Black Jack at Lallybroch, and we filmed that. It was actually my first day of filming, where he comes and takes Jenny, Jamie's sister, and knocks out Jamie and beats Jamie.
No. Let my sister be. Sister?
It does feel like quite a sort of, this is the beginning of the whole story for Jamie. It becomes very personal.
It's quite simple. Give over to me. Make free of your body. And there will be no second flogging.
There's an aspect, you know, of Jack's fascination with Jamie that verges into the sexual and into the sadomasochistic. Diana has said Jack is an equal opportunity sadist and pervert in that he's just as likely to go rape women and be sadistic to them as he is to men. And part of it has to do with power. Part of it has to do with his fascination with Jamie's ability to endure pain. And then there was a part of Jack, the sadistic part of Jack, that literally saw beauty in the pain and really started to enjoy this sort of horrific thing that he was inflicting on this young man.
I haven't even begun.
Those are the tactics, but that's not the aim. The aim is to, I think, to break Jamie psychologically.
What shall I do with you?
He is the nasty villain who sort of lurks behind the whole time in the story, and then really, you know, by the end of the season, he shows his true colors, and it gets very horrific. It's not like there's a happily ever after straight away. This is a long journey you're going to go on with this character.
It's going to develop their relationship, and they go places, and I think that's ultimately what gets him through what happens at the end of the series with Randall, that they have this bond.
It's going to be dark, and it's going to be surprising. It's going to go in directions that I'm pretty sure a lot of audiences are not expecting.
That's part of the great friction of the story, you know.